Hi, and welcome to the second part of the Hygiene Policy video training series. In the last hygiene video, we covered personal cleanliness, dress code, and personal effects. This video will cover hand washing, glove use, and behavior policies. These are the pillars of good hygiene. Let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is Paxton Packing's hand washing policies. Proper hand hygiene is a food processing plant's first line of defense against food contamination. Hand washing is vital in preventing the contamination of food by food handlers, but it's not as simple or easy as it may seem. In fact, CDC investigations into foodborne illness outbreaks have identified the hands of food workers as the source of pathogens in nearly 50% of foodborne illness outbreaks. It's easy to see why this is the case, especially if you consider that researchers have also discovered that less than 25% of food workers are properly washing their hands. And that researchers have found in a 30-minute period, an average person comes into contact with more than 300 surfaces, exposing them to about 1 million bacterial cells. You can see why washing hands is so important for food production employees. Failure to properly wash our hands allows bacteria to be spread to food, potentially making people sick. We know that hand washing is vitally important, and we know that most people are not doing it correctly or not doing it often enough. Paxton Packing's hand washing policies take the guesswork out of when and how to wash your hands. The policies require that hands shall be washed before beginning work, before glove use and changes, after any absence from the production warehouse floor, after each visit to the toilet, and this means that you're going to be washing your hands twice, once before you leave the restroom and once when you get back to the production floor. Hands must be washed after you return from the break room, the locker room, or from anywhere outside of the production warehouse area. Hands must be washed after eating, drinking, or smoking, and they must be washed immediately after handling contaminated material such as waste product or trash. Hands also must be washed after touching any non-food contact surfaces, such as your face, body, clothing, boxes, or anything that we're not using to prepare food, such as chemicals, chemical bottles. Hands must be washed after coughing, sneezing, or using a tissue. And hands must be washed at a hand washing station. They must be washed thoroughly for approximately 20 seconds using soap, warm water, and then dried with paper towels. Let's watch this short video detailing when and where to wash our hands.
As a food handler, you need to wash your hands more often at work than you might while you're at home. You also can't wash your hands just anywhere. In fact, while you're at work, you only have 2 options for where to wash your hands. You can wash them in the bathroom sink or in a hand washing sink that your manager has set aside for that purpose only. You should wash your hands anytime you think they might be contaminated, but let me give you a few examples of when you must hand wash. Wash your hands after going to the bathroom, obviously, but when you come back to a food preparation area, wash them again in the hand washing sink. This is called double hand washing. You also need to wash your hands before and after preparing foods, especially raw meat. You need to wash your hands after you eat, drink, or smoke, after taking out the garbage, after taking a break, or when switching tasks. If you've been using cleaning and sanitizing chemicals, or touching unsanitized equipment, you need to wash your hands. And if you touch your face, hair, clothing, or anything else that might transfer pathogens to your hands, you must wash them. Finally, you need to wash your hands before putting on single-use disposable gloves. This will keep you from contaminating the outer surface of the gloves as you put them on.
Now that we know when and where to wash our hands, let's cover proper hand washing. First, wet your hands with water and cover all surfaces with soap. Rub your hands together, palms facing one another. Rub the back of one hand with the palm of the other. And switch. Rub hands together, palms facing one another, interlacing fingers. Rub the back of the fingers with your closed hand in the palm of the other hand. And switch. Rub each finger with the other hand using a rotational motion, starting with the thumb. Rub the tips of each finger on the palm of the opposite hand. Rub wrists of each hand. Rinse your hands with warm water and dry immediately using a paper towel. Let's go over the steps of hand washing one more time. Keep in mind that for every 15 seconds that you spend washing your hand, 10 times more bacteria is removed. Most bacteria on our hands are on the fingertips and under the nails, and most people wash their palms of the hand and miss all of this. The bacteria count is highest on the dominant hand, yet we find that right-handed people wash their left hand more thoroughly than their right hand, and vice versa. To properly wash your hands, the first step is to wet your hands. Second step, apply soap. Third step, wash your hands for 20 seconds. Fourth step, rinse them completely. Fifth step, dry your hands. And then if you had to touch the faucet to turn it on, use a paper towel to turn it off to avoid recontaminating your hands with the fecal bacteria that's in the bathroom. Hand sanitizer may be used after hand washing, but not in place of it. And this is because sanitizers can't kill norovirus, which is a common cause of foodborne illnesses. Gloves are designed to protect food from contamination, but if they're improperly used, they themselves can be a source of contamination. Paxton Packing's glove use policy requires that all employees that manufacture and handle exposed product must wear protective gloves. Hands must be washed and dried prior to glove use. Disposable gloves may not be washed. And gloves must be changed whenever they are dirty, soiled, torn, or anytime you touch anything that's a non-food contact surface, such as the floor, door handles, your body, your face, your hair, your clothes, or cardboard boxes. Paxton Packing's glove use policy requires that hands are properly washed and dried when gloves are changed. Employees often forget this and don't realize that they may contaminate new gloves if their hands are not properly washed first. It's important to select the proper size glove. This will help prevent possible contamination. When you're putting your glove on, hold the glove by the wrist edge when putting on to avoid touching the glove as much as possible. Never blow into gloves and never roll gloves to make it easier to put on. Paxton Packing's glove use policy also requires that gloves must be discarded prior to leaving the production floor, and they must be discarded after any non-product contact activity, such as housekeeping, moving boxes, or opening cases. Gloves must be discarded if they show any signs of deterioration that could cause contamination. Boxes of disposable gloves must be stored in a sanitary manner. Boxes of disposable gloves which have become unsanitary must be thrown away, even if they're not open. Why is it so important to wash your hands whenever you change gloves or whenever you tear a glove? Because protective gloves can provide a nice warm environment for bacteria to grow, enabling the development of something in the food industry we refer to as glove juice. Glove juice is essentially the sweat and moisture that develops on hands encased in a glove, and it is a perfect environment for bacteria to grow. If a worker tears a glove while working or removes a glove and then touches food or equipment, this bacteria laden moisture can immediately transfer contaminants. Essentially, you're delivering an ultra concentrated colony of germs to anything you touch. This is why it's essential to wash your hands whenever you change gloves or whenever you rip a pair of gloves. Okay, so far we've covered some of the pillars of good hygiene. In this video, we covered hand washing and glove use, and in the previous video, we covered personal cleanliness, personal effects, and dress code. And you may be thinking, if you're coming to work clean, wearing clean clothes, storing your personal effects properly, wearing overcoats, washing your hands, and using gloves, that you're in the clear as far as food safety. However, there are still ways that food employees who are following these policies may contaminate food. And this really comes down to our behavior. Our daily behavior in the food production environment can either support or undermine every one of these food safety policies. Behavior can really make or break food safety. Let's talk more about what this entails. An example of where behavior can make or break food safety is with our blue and white coats. These coats are designed to protect food, but if they are used improperly, they can become a source of contamination. Essentially, your behavior when wearing a coat determines how well it will protect food. It's up to you to be mindful and protect your coat from contamination. It is imperative that coats are not worn anywhere but in production areas. Do not wear coats outside, onto the loading docks, into the offices, or into the break rooms. Coats must not be worn into warehouse areas, into entry hallways, and especially coats must never be worn into the bathrooms. We've already talked about how bathrooms are very contaminated spaces, and fecal bacteria is the last thing we want to get on our coats. Remember, it's up to you to be mindful and protect your coat from contamination. And this includes when you're coming back from break or when you're going on to break. If your coat is still clean and you're going to break, make sure that before you leave the production area and before removing your hairnet, that you hang your coat in the designated area. Then, when you come back from break, make sure you put your hairnet on first and then your coat. Again, our blue and white coats are worn to protect food from contamination that may be on your clothes or your body. But the coats cannot protect food if they are used in ways that cause them to be contaminated. Please be sure to avoid wiping your hands on your coats or your pants. If you need to wipe, stop and wash. Make sure that you avoid rolling the sleeves of your coats. This can cause food to get stuck into the rolls and fall out at inopportune times, leading to contamination. Also, change your coat whenever it is soiled and after handling allergens like wheat, soy, fish, or nuts. If you need help deciding whether to change your coat, talk to your manager or a QA tech. Another area where behavior can make or break food safety policies has to do with foot traffic. Foot traffic is a primary vector of food contamination. That means it's very easy for shoes and feet to spread bacteria around a plant that can cause foodborne illnesses. Footwear contacts and carries just about every contaminant imaginable. A University of Arizona study found that 90% of shoes hold coliform and E. coli bacteria, indicating frequent contact with fecal matter, likely from a restroom floor or outdoor animal feces. Shoes can also spread listeria and salmonella from around the plant, very dangerous pathogens that can lead to foodborne illnesses. Make sure that you're wearing clean, closed-toed shoes to work. Ideally, we'd like you to designate a pair of shoes for work and leave them at the facility. While you're working, ensure that your shoes are clean and free of food particles, and walk through the sanitizing stations where they're provided. Paxton packing employees must only eat and drink in designated areas, never on the production floor. Because of the immense potential to spread biological, physical, and potentially allergenic contamination, eating, with the exception of designated employees tasting foods to ensure quality, is not allowed in the production area. Drinking from a closed beverage container with a lid is permitted with certain conditions in the production area. Beverage containers must be stored away from food contact surfaces and food contact supplies like boxes of gloves or product bags. Each time they take a drink, employees must step at least 6 feet away from food contact surfaces and open product. Then take off their gloves before handling their beverage container. When finished, employees must return the beverage container to an appropriate storage location. Then they must wash their hands and put on new gloves before returning to the production line. Eating sunflower seeds, chewing tobacco, chewing gum, or eating candy are not prohibited in the production area. And of course, smoking is only allowed in designated areas away from entrances and loading docks. Another area where your behavior really determines food safety has to do with your personal cell phone. Phones are a big source of biological contaminations. Researchers at the University of London found that 88% of smartphone users use their phone on the toilet. And while you may wash your hands after using the toilet, 0% of phones get washed afterwards. That means they are contaminated. And in fact, 90% of phones are found to have Staphylococcus bacteria on them, and 16% are found to have E. coli. That's right, poop on your phone. And if it's on your phone, it's very likely on your hands, your clothes, and anything else that you touch. If you pull your phone out of your pocket on the production floor, you can easily spread the bacteria to your coat or food contact surfaces, and eventually to finished product that someone will eat. Remember, these pathways of contamination are complex but invisible, and that's why cell phones are not allowed on the production floor. It's also really important to avoid coughing, sneezing, or spitting in the food production area. If you need to cough or you're surprised by a sneeze, turn away from food contact surfaces and open product, cough into your sleeve, stop, change your coat, and wash your hands before returning to the production area. It's also incredibly important to think about how you use your gloves. Gloves are designed to protect food from contamination, but our behavior when we're wearing gloves can lead to contamination that can eventually make someone sick. While wearing gloves, avoid touching anything but food with your gloves. And that includes your hairnet, your face, your glasses, hats, boxes, cleaning tools. Make sure to notify management of any cuts and any body fluid spillage. And be mindful of contamination. This concludes part 2 of our hygiene video training series. Thanks for your attention. And remember, we can prevent contamination from hitchhiking along those complex paths and potentially making its way to food and to customers with good hygiene. After you finish the video, please complete the quiz in the description below.